should know where you are, or less, and why you're here. So the association has been alive for 45 years. We've been working on this site that you'll see tomorrow for 5 years. And so you'll be part of a big group of people who's been working on that already. So you'll see the whole site tomorrow, and all the work will be explained to you tomorrow by Charlie.
Yeah, are you sure that's the right one? You have charge? No, FSR does not have
5 minutes!
Nobody on the right?
Like something with a jacket that's warm and then has wood that's like, like that's right. Yeah.
We can. Of the mill, big wheel here and a big wheel behind the wall, and after all the mechanic for grinder and something like that. But during the 19th century they changed the type of wheel. Before it was a vertical wheel, and now it was an horizontal wheel. Horizontal wheel with all the mechanical things just behind the wall and nothing here. Here it was just the habitation part.
It is we're gonna turn with the step. So we have one step here, one step here, one step like that.
Okay. Now I see how the steps
Not
go.
only one. Too easy.
So we're working on the tiles here. We're trying to even out level with what's already done with this block, so it can be
The new floor.
Kind of like a border for the new floor that we're going to be doing.
Okay, we're clearing this land so that we can plant a medieval garden, and we're using tools of the time. Things like this pickaxe. We've got pitchforks, scythes, if you see the field scythes around here. And basically what we want to do is we want to get all this clay soil turned up so that we can plant herbs that would usually be used for medicine in the area, and kind of cultivate a garden so that people who move here later, once we have this renovated, can utilize the garden and make things for themselves. You want to be self-sufficient.
So here we have a medieval barn, late medieval barn, perhaps. If you look over here on the wall, you can see the intrusions where the beams would have been laid across, and then upon that would have been a floor and the size and the closeness together means that the second floor could have held a good deal of weight, and they believe that this was the barn where the hay, after the threshing and the grains are separated, the hay would be stored in here for fodder for cows and horses. Possibly a later addition second floor, or maybe some other function indicated by the small holes up there. But of particular interest, I think, is the central truss work, which seems to be many centuries old anyway. Notice that there's no metal parts, no nails or braces in there. Everything is jointed together, and you can see some of the tree nails or the wooden pegs sticking out that pegged all the components together after they were expertly carved by carpenters.
I think it's awesome. It's very rich in history, and it's really cool to see something so old and we get to actually be a part of it and get our hands on history, basically. It's really cool. Hard work, very moist out, but I am optimistic on day one. So we will see a couple days from now.
We have new owner.
We have to get the whole wall wet. I don't know why. And then we just made plaster, and I guess we're just gonna like put in the cracks and stuff.
So here we are at the Moulin de Villignon. This is the 15th century water mill that 26 Valencia students are working for the restoration of. Here you can see where the mill race came in and terminated. This arrangement of stones here was to create a fall of water that impacted the original vertical water wheel that was originally installed. So that would make this an undershot water wheel. It would impact and then rotate, and originally the central axle would have fed through what is now a plastered up small door to run the gears and the millstones, all the machinery on the other side. One reason for the wall that separates the two is so that the splashing of the water on the water wheel doesn't get into the flour that's being ground on the other side. So the miller would have done all of his work just in these two rooms. Now, for reasons that are not quite clear, in the 19th century, in the later Napoleonic era, they reconfigured the water mill. Probably the original wheel had dilapidated by then, and they installed instead a horizontal impact wheel. You can see the curvature of the wall here. That gives us something of the shape of the wheel, and the top of the iron spindle, visible just beneath the water surface, is the central axle. So now we still would have had a fall of water impacting the wheel, but now rotating in a horizontal plane and spinning a vertical axle. this would have been attached to other machinery, other gears that would have turned the grinding machine over here. Now, if you look over on this side, you can see the curvature of the wall, which indicates that there was a large press wheel of some sort, perhaps an edge runner wheel. We know from archival records that they ground chestnuts and hazelnuts here. Chestnut oil was for varnishing wood, and other oils are for cooking. So we seem to have had some large wheel here that would have been for the grinding process, similar to olive oil presses and cider presses you would see in Normandy. Now, we have a very dilapidated structure, but our Valencia students will spend the next few weeks working on its restoration.
Today we were visited by Jean et Annie Taxier. These were people whose families were involved in the resistance against the German occupation in France during World War II. Today we heard tales of espionage, and they were both fascinating and rather humbling. Oftentimes, I didn't really realize the gravity of the things that happened during World War II because I hadn't talked to someone who lived in Europe and had family involved in the combat.
He couldn't, in his old age, he couldn't even watch a war film on television without having horrible nightmares in the night.
The first few tales were pretty funny, but as they have to be to lighten the mood for such a serious topic. Afterwards, we heard some very serious tales of espionage, some tragic, some not so tragic. It really puts things into perspective, the weight of the situation that was happening. After the talk, Annie Taxier handed me a souvenir, which was photocopies of her family's identification papers from the 1700s in France to show that she had been part of French history and especially French resistance and revolution for hundreds of years. It made me feel very honored that a local would give me such a gift. It blew me away. I'm still at a loss for words.
I don't know how to say this in French, but I'm so honored. Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
It's my pleasure as well.
Enjoy your stay in France.
Merci, Annie.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Au revoir, Karen. Au revoir.
But the colors are so nice.
Work like that. Can I take your chisel?
We're cutting some limestone blocks, in this case modern cement limestone blocks, into what will be the reconstructed steps going up to the miller's house. I've spent about a day and a half cutting this ciseau line along here on this edge. Now we take the broche and we remove material across the face and begin to shape it as we need it.
It will remain 11 o'clock. I'll tell you otherwise.
Okay.
The campsite has taken all of the rain that it can. It's flooding. In some places there are several inches of standing water. All of our things had to be elevated. Many of them could have gotten wet. It's kind of inclement weather. It's going to be raining like this for the next 2 or 3 days. So it's been a little stressful.
On our way in, we noticed that all of the tents were closed. So we tried to rush in as fast as we could, and it was just everybody got soaked, and it wasn't really a very fun thing. We're going to be staying in the hotels tonight. We're about to go get dinner elsewhere. So.
No. We paid a lot of money for this.
Felipe, what do you feel about today's experiences?
I say I'm very happy to be here. Yeah.
No tensions or something.
It's wet. It's amazing.
But we're still smiling.
Viva la France. We're going to put our luggage in a church in the town, and then we're going to go to a hotel, dry hotel, and we're not going to get flooded out.
Hopefully. I'm going to take my first shower in 3 weeks. Just kidding.
3 weeks? We've only been here for like 6 days.
Did I say that out loud?
You will sleep in the restroom here. Okay?
You know what I mean?
I know.
What? I am doing it like a foul.
We've been turning some soil to make a garden. The back half is going to be vegetables. This is a purple type of lettuce that would have been used often in the medieval times. High in vitamin A, high in iron, very good staple food for the peasants.
This is the birth province of the King of France. François Ier told you was born in Cognac, so perhaps the King of France wanted to show his birth province. This is a property of the family La Rochefoucauld, who is already in the 16th century an old and prestigious family. Prestigious enough to receive that sort of guests, an emperor and a king, with nice properties.
I was just noticing as we're walking around how you could see some of the chisel marks, like what we've been working on at the work site. You can see some of the marks here. They're very faint because they're kind of old, but you can see on the newer stone here. Not as straight as I would like it, you know, from the work site, but you can see the marks right here. There's a good one. An example of La Broche that we were using using to chisel off the big chunks of stone. You can see the straight lines that we use with the tools. It's really cool to actually be able to see our work like finished in stone like this, and then you kind of see it finished and you're like, wow, that's what's gonna happen.
So I went into the cave. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to come see this cave. This is what I came to France for, and I knew what I was expecting, but I was still overwhelmed and baffled about the beauty and the artistic value that went into these caves, and how they use their resources, how they said that there was probably scaffolding. I was baffled by it. After the tour of the cave, we did come outside. Our English guide was kind enough to answer some questions.
Yes, you have a certain pattern that you find in different caves, but you never find this one in another cave.
I asked her about the restoration project, if she knew about the mill, and she said she did know about the mill, but she didn't know that we were restoring it. Also that she didn't know that Americans were here to restore it, and I asked her how she felt about that, and she said that she thought it was beautiful and powerful that complete strangers would care so much about French history and culture that they would come all the way here to restore something for them, and that made me feel like I was providing something for the French people.
It wasn't a restaurant, it's been transformed. It was a bergerie, so I don't know, a goat. Goat place?
Yes.
So there was a farmer.
Yep.
And he had these goats, and there was it was like straw all over the place, and goats, and, and there was
a farmhouse.
A farmhouse, exactly. So it's been transformed in restaurant. That's why we couldn't push the walls.
Yes.
So we have done as much best as we.
And it works very well. I agree with the smaller area, the easier it is to maintain and organize.
Yes, absolutely, and it's less walking on a day, which is important because at the end of the day,
tired.
This is the chef who's prepared your meal today. Is the boss here. Yep. From here, he is the boss. Okay, that's how it works. Restaurants in France and most of the time in the world.
Most of the world.
Okay.
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
God. This place makes the best maquereau du canard you will ever eat.
Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime. Mark Twain.
In August of 2014, a small group of 30 people traveled from Valencia College in Orlando, Florida, USA. Their purpose was to take part in the restoration of the medieval watermill of Villenon. Their goal was not only historical preservation, but also to build bridges between cultures, to experience firsthand a look into the culture and traditions of the people of another country.
We were a hardy group of students and professors who came here to renovate this medieval watermill, guided by these words from a 12th century Parisian scholar, Hugh of St. Victor. Learn everything. You'll see afterwards that nothing is superfluous.
J'ai vu la
la recommencer. La recommencer. In the Middle Ages, the French nobility built castles. These were structures built for one purpose, and that's military defense. They had very thick walls and very narrow windows for shooting arrows out of and not getting shot yourself. They let in plenty of cold drafts, but not very much sunlight. The advent of gunpowder at the end of the Middle Ages made these castles obsolete. In the 16th century, with the Italian Renaissance style of architecture finding its way into France, the nobility redesigned their structures with open windows and gracious interiors suitable for the increasingly luxurious lifestyles that they were enjoying. Here in southern France, the Chateau of Chenonceau is one of the most famous of these examples. We're here at Clos-Lucé, near the Chateau d'Amboise in the south of France, where Leonardo da Vinci spent the last 3 years of his life at the invitation of the French king, Francois I. Today, it is a tourist attraction and a rolling park filled with reconstructions of the great master's designs. Over here we have one of his most famous images recreated, the aerial screw, one of his many attempts at a flying machine. The inspiration for this actually came from a toy that had come back from China in the 15th century. Imagine a very small little version of this made of lightweight balsa wood and thin fabric with a string wrapped around the bottom. You give it a hard spin and it flies in the air like a little aerial top. Leonardo saw children playing with these Chinese import toys and had the inspiration that maybe this would be the way to allow human beings to achieve flight. In the early 1970s, Ladislao Redi, the greatest of 20th century Leonardo da Vinci scholars, made an extraordinary discovery. There had been a parchment page that had been glued to the cover of one of his notebooks, and he got permission to steam it off and see if anything happened to be drawn on the other side. What he saw was a drawing, not in Leonardo's hand, but apparently from one of the students that were apprentices of his workshop, one of the teenage boys who were lucky enough to have worked with the master. And it was a drawing of what looks a lot to the 20th century like a modern bicycle. Now, the actual bicycle was invented in the 19th century, but apparently Leonardo had figured out that a chain drive and a sprocket gear could be arranged on a two-wheeled vehicle, and amazingly seemed to understand that you could keep yourself upright. Something ordinary today, but extraordinary until you actually see it done for the first time. Over here we have a reconstruction from the drawing. We know that Leonardo had developed all of the component gears of a bicycle, probably in designing ways to make his flying machines more workable by employing leg muscles as well as arm muscles, realizing that the human body tires very quickly and we're simply not designed like birds for flight. So the chain gears and the sprockets, the pedals that you see, were originally designed to help flap wings or spin propellers. But somehow, it seems as if he figured out some way to put together into a bicycle 350 years before the bicycle was actually invented. What this means is that almost 4 centuries before the advent of the bicycle, a half-dozen lucky students of Leonardo da Vinci were riding bicycles around his workshop in the middle of the Italian Renaissance. Italian Renaissance was inspired by the rediscovery of ancient manuscripts and the continued reading of ones that had been known in the Middle Ages. One of the most important was that of Vitruvius, who wrote the 10 books of architecture around the time of the dawn of the Roman Empire. The mechanical technology he described included what is called the Archimedean screw. Designed by the ancient Hellenistic Greek engineer Archimedes, it is a series of threads within a tube that can raise water a short distance when put at the correct angle. What's unusual is that Leonardo and most Renaissance builders misunderstood a lot of what they read in Vitruvius, and so Leonardo gives us a series of tubes wrapped around a central thread. It does in fact work, but it is not exactly how the ancient Romans had built these. On the 11th of June, 1194, lightning struck the old Romanesque cathedral at Chartres and burned most of it to the ground. Miraculously, its most precious relic, the veil of the Virgin Mary, was preserved. The citizens of Chartres took this as a sign that Mary wanted a new church built in her honor, and thus began the construction of the greatest gem of all Gothic architecture, Chartres Cathedral. Chartres Cathedral is not the largest, most elaborate cathedrals, but fate has been kind to Chartres, and almost all of its original stained glass windows have survived the centuries and the wars and are still available to be seen today. Soaring 60 feet into the air in its majestic rose windows, and the details of everyday life in the Middle Ages depicted in the bottom corners, reflecting the occupations of the various guilds who provided the money for the windows to be built. It wasn't just the beautiful stained glass windows that brought color to the cathedral. Although most people think of Gothic today as a dark and gloomy endeavor, in the Middle Ages these cathedrals were brightly painted. Modern restorers discovered microscopic flecks of these paint as they cleaned the statues and the exterior surfaces of the cathedral. After decades spent restoring it, they weren't about to repaint all of this again. But they do recreate the colors through a technique called color mapping, in which shaped and focused projected light is splayed onto the cathedral, recreating the original colors that people once enjoyed. And just for fun, on the grand facades, we have rather wild laser light shows presented also. Hello Valencia, we are here at Sainte-Chapelle, built in the 13th century by King Louis IX of France, you know him as Saint Louis. This is a tiny little Gothic chapel built to hold his personal collection of holy relics. This is the lower floor, which is stunning and beautiful. What do you see the upper floor? The Cathedral of Notre Dame of Paris is the world's most famous Gothic cathedral, thanks largely to the literary efforts of the 19th century novelist Victor Hugo, whose work will always associate this cathedral with a fictional hunchback named Quasimodo. This novel inspired a zeal for the restoration of France's long-neglected medieval past. Viollet-le-Duc, an architectural historian and aesthete of the time, undertook the restoration of Notre Dame Cathedral, turning it into a symbol of French pride. The famous grotesques at the top of the cathedral are in fact not medieval, but his work, 19th century medieval fantasy. There's nothing quite like the experience of traveling. To leave your home, your routine, your sense of normal life, and embrace headlong the frightening, exhilarating unknown. It makes one feel alive in a way that is wholly unknown to those who have stayed home. The 29 people who shared this adventure are part of a universe known only to them. They alone will recall the taste and smell and feel of these 15 days. Memories made all the more poignant by the knowledge that we 29 travelers will never all be together again. This was our unique moment, never to be repeated, never to be wholly shared, never to be forgotten.